They say that certain vows are harder to break than iron shackles. Silence, chastity, and obedience mold the nuns into beings of devotion, but they can also hide the darkest secrets of the human soul. For centuries, convents were seen as havens of holiness, secluded enclaves where the outside world could not touch. But what if what was trapped inside wasn't something sacred, but an evil that should never have been freed? Today, you will learn 6 horrifying stories of nuns whose souls, whether through devotion, madness, or revenge, have become legends of terror. Get ready. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your macabre like. You don't want to face these shadows alone. Our first story begins in Lisbon at the end of the 19th century. The nuns who lived there spent days in silence, praying, fasting, always under the watchful eye of the Mother Superior, Isabel de Alencar. But what made that place a point of terror was a seemingly innocent gift, a mirror. Not an ordinary mirror, but an artifact from Italy, from an eccentric collector named Count Vittorio de Monteleone. The gilded frame was ornamented with eyes and serpents, symbols that many believed to be linked to ancient occult practices. Mother Isabel was strict but skeptical. She didn't believe in superstitions. He accepted the mirror and placed it in his private chambers, behind the altar of prayer. But soon the phenomena began. First there were whispers. Later the nuns noticed that the mother spent hours staring at the mirror, murmuring prayers in unknown tongues. Sister Maria dos Anjos was the first to realize that something was wrong. She saw through the crack in the door that Elizabeth's reflection smiled when she actually had an impassive face. And there was a strange glint in the reflected eyes. An emptiness. The nights became unbearable in the convent. Muffled screams, footsteps that came from nowhere, and worse, the nuns began to dream of distorted versions of themselves, trapped inside mirrors, beating desperately to get out. Until, on a rainy morning, Sister Maria was found dead on the floor of Isabel's cell. She had slit her own wrists and written with her own blood on the mirror, "Sinner." The convent was closed shortly after. It is said that, to this day, the mirror remains there, and that whoever looks at him at midnight sees Elizabeth's reflection. But on the other side, we continue to Mexico, more precisely in the desert region of Zacatecas, where the ruins of the convent of San Sebastian rest. Founded in 1702, it was known for housing cloistered nuns who took vows of absolute silence. Nobody spoke. Nobody sang. They just prayed, day and night. But in 1975, something changed. The residents of the small village near the convent began to hear sounds coming from the hill where the building stood. Screams. Not soft groans or pious murmurs, but long, uninterrupted cries of terror. At first, they thought it was a robbery, but the sounds continued night after night. When the authorities finally decided to investigate, they found the gate locked from the inside. They had to break down the entrance. What they saw inside, they would never forget. All the nuns were dead, their faces contorted with dread, as if they had seen something impossible to describe. Their nails were worn, some pulled out, as if they had tried to dig into the walls with their bare hands. And on the stones of the corridors, phrases were scratched. They came from the shadows. They scream inside us. No explanation was given for the events. An exorcist priest sent to the scene claimed that he felt something watching him the entire time, but refused to describe what he saw in the main chapel. They say that even today, when night falls, the winds bring whispers from that place. And sometimes the screams return, echoing through the village. Those who dare to approach report hearing voices calling their name, even if they never told their names to anyone. High in the Portuguese mountains, isolated from the world, stands the convent of Our Lady of Silence. And there lived the faceless nun. Sister Carolina was an intelligent, questioning woman, something rare in such an oppressive environment. She questioned the dogmas of the Mother Superior, pointed out flaws in the teachings. Therefore, she was convicted. His punishment, exile within the convent itself. Locked in a cell with no windows, no contact with anyone, no permission to leave, no sound, no light. It is said that after years there, Carolina forgot what her own face looked like. When he finally died, his body was found without facial features. Only smooth skin covered where his eyes, mouth, and nose should have been. From there, the apparitions began. Nuns and visitors said they saw a figure in a black habit, standing at the end of the corridor, motionless. But as they approached, they realized that she had no face. And then came the voice, soft, like an icy breath in the ear. "See me. Please see me." Those who tried to obey, they lost their sight. Some reported unbearable pain before passing out. Others were never found. Currently, the convent is a tourist spot for the bravest. But there are those who say that, on moonless nights, the faceless nun reappears, waiting for eyes to see her, and then taking them with her. Forever. In the mountainous region of Italy, the convent of San Gennaro holds the story of Sister Benedetta and her eternal vow. Benedetta was devout, but her faith became an obsession. She believed she was solely responsible for the protection of the sisters and the convent. When she fell ill and felt death approaching, she asked to be buried in the cloister, where she could continue to watch after death. The Mother Superior refused, burying her outside the sacred walls. But Benedetta had sworn, "I will never abandon my post." On the nights following the burial, the nuns heard heavy footsteps through the corridors. Objects moved by themselves. Locked doors opened with a bang. Some sisters woke up with burn marks, such as burning hands holding their arms. The figure of Benedetta appeared. Torn veil, incandescent crucifix in her hands, and black, lifeless eyes. The convent was emptied after a failed exorcism. The priest sent never returned. It is said that even today, the bells ring at midnight, and that Benedetta still prowls the corridors, fulfilling her eternal vow to protect or destroy. In the dark heart of Romania, there is a chapel called the Chapel of the Eyes. There lived blind nuns dedicated to continuous prayer, believing that physical blindness gave them spiritual sight. But Sister Agata saw it. She saw something that no one else could. He whispered about shadows that lurked between the pews of the chapel. He asked the sisters not to pray at night. They didn't listen. On a cold night, they were all found dead, without eyes. Agata disappeared. It is said that she gave up her vision in exchange for her own life. Today, those who visit the chapel say they feel observed. The stained glass windows appear to contain faces, and eyes follow every movement. Some tourists were never seen again. Others went crazy after leaving, gouging out their own eyes in despair. And finally, we have Mother Louise, from the convent of Saint-Éloi in France. After his death, the nuns thought they were free. But the killings have begun. One fell from the tower, another drowned in the well. Louise is said to have appeared demanding obedience. Today, the convent has become a museum. Visitors swear to hear an order, kneel, and those who do not obey. He feels invisible hands forcing them to the ground. If you've made it this far, congratulations. But remember, some stories are portals, and you just heard 6 of them. May God protect you. Or who knows, they are already coming for you. Of these stories gave you the most goosebumps? Comment here, subscribe to the channel for more macabre legends, and activate the bell. Until the next video, if there is a neighbor. In the dark heart of Romania, there is a chapel called the Chapel of the Eyes. There lived blind nuns, dedicated to continuous prayer, believing that physical blindness gave them spiritual sight. But Sister Agatha saw it. She saw something that no one else could. He whispered about shadows that lurked between the pews of the chapel. He asked the sisters not to pray at night. They didn't listen. On a cold night, they were all found dead, without eyes. Agatha disappeared. It is said that she gave up her vision in exchange for her own life. Today, those who visit the chapel say they feel observed. The stained glass windows appear to contain faces, and eyes follow every movement. Some tourists were never seen again. Others went crazy after leaving, gouging out their own eyes in despair. And finally, we have Mother Louise, from the convent of Saint-Éloi in France. After his death, the nuns thought they were free, but the killings have begun. One fell from the tower, another drowned in the well. Louise is said to have appeared demanding obedience. Today, the convent has become a museum. Visitors swear to hear an order, kneel, and those who do not obey. He feels invisible hands forcing them to the ground. If you've made it this far, congratulations. But remember, some stories are portals, and you just heard 6 of them. May God protect you. Or who knows? They are already coming for you. Of these stories gave you the most goosebumps? Comment here, subscribe to the channel for more macabre legends, and activate the bell. Until the next video, if there is a neighbor. In many convents around the world, the rules are clear. Nuns are counted as sheep in a flock. Each one has a piece of paper, a bed, a name on the record, and each of them must be present in morning prayers without exception. And when someone else shows up? The convent of the Seven Sisters was built in the 16th century on an island in the middle of a lake known as the Mirror of God. It was said that the waters reflected not only the image, but also the soul of those who looked deeply into them. The 7 foundresses of the order lived there in complete isolation, dedicating themselves to eternal prayer. Over the centuries, other nuns occupied the convent, always in groups of 7. It was a tradition maintained without fail. In 1963, Sister Helena, a young novice, was sent to complete the number of 7. When he arrived, he found a cold and hostile environment. The other 6 nuns were elderly, silent, and always seemed to observe Helena with an uncomfortable suspicion. The days were marked by long prayers, extreme fasting, and absolute silence. No one spoke except in Latin prayers. In the second week, Helena noticed something strange. During the prayer in the chapel, as she looked discreetly at the other sisters, she said, 8 kneeling silhouettes. He thought it was a mistake. But in the evening, in the cafeteria, he again noticed 8 people sitting at the table. He didn't say anything. That night, she dreamed of a figure covered in black veils whispering something she didn't understand. The next day, he went to the cloister to count the beds. There were 7. But curiously, one of the beds was always cold, as if no one used it. But every time she peeked through the crack in the doors at night, she saw a shape lying there, a nun who was not breathing. A month later, Helena was tasked with updating the Book of Names, a sacred record of the names of all the sisters who lived and died there. When he flipped through the pages, he found 7 names, as expected. But on the last page, there was a name written in red ink, Sister Celia. Helena had never met anyone with that name in the convent. None of the nuns mentioned this sister. When she questioned Mother Beatrice, she received only an icy look and the answer, she prays alone. Restless, Helena decided to walk to the lake, something forbidden. When she reached the bank, she saw the reflection of the 7 nuns behind her. But as he turned around, no one was there. In the reflection, one of the figures came closer. His habit was darker, like a hole in reality. The nun lifted the veil and revealed a face without skin, only exposed muscle and white eyes. She whispered, 8. There are always 8. Helena ran back to the convent, but from that night on, she began to hear extra footsteps in the dormitory. The candles went out by themselves. And someone would stand in the corner of his room, not moving, all night. When confronting the mother, Helena demanded answers. Then, in a last confession, the mother told the story of Sister Celia. Centuries before, she had been the 8th nun in the convent, sent when there were only 6 sisters. He committed a terrible sin. He tried to flee the island, breaking his vow of obedience. She was found dead on the shores of the lake, as if something had ripped out her soul. But his body was still there, preying on stormy nights. Since then, when 7 nuns occupy the convent, she appears as the 8th, sometimes to warn, sometimes to replace someone. And that night, Helena understood. When he woke up, there was an empty bed. One of the nuns had disappeared. The bell rang by itself. And at the cafeteria table, there were 7 nuns again. But Helena knew that she was now the 8th. The convent was found years later, empty. Only 7 habits hanging in the cloister, and a name scrawled on the stone by the lake. Helena. It is said that on foggy nights, if you look in the reflection of the lake, you will see 8 figures walking along the shore. And one of them, it will lift the veil for you. If one day you visit a convent and they count 7 nuns, tell it again. There are always 8.